By 1899, the old Western culture in America was beginning to fade, and the power of law and order was being felt more intensely. During this period, outlaws and free spirits who struggled to survive could no longer find many places to take refuge. Amidst this dark period, a gang led by Dutch Van der Linde is on the run from the law while trying to create a new life for themselves. As the leader, Dutch Van der Linde is a charismatic figure who has turned his pursuit of freedom and rebellion into a way of life. However, over time, his idealism begins to be overshadowed and the gang's future starts to change. Among Dutch's loyal members are Arthur Morgan and John Marston, who were raised almost like family by Dutch. They learned the meaning of survival, fighting, and freedom under his leadership. Arthur and John grew up like brothers, outlaws, with a deep trust in each other. But when a bank robbery organized by the gang in Blackwater goes wrong, the gang's security is compromised, and things become more complex. In their quest to seize a great fortune, the gang suffers many losses, with key members injured or captured. After the failed heist, the gang retreats to the mountains and, in the midst of a cold winter, sets up camp in an abandoned mining town to survive. The gang sets out in search of food and money to recover. At this point, while Dutch tries to maintain his former strength as a leader, he senses that the gang is beginning to fall apart. To keep the gang alive and powerful, Dutch makes risky decisions, planning bigger and more dangerous heists. However, these decisions cause tension among the members. Micah Bell, a cunning and dangerous character who joins the gang, begins to influence Dutch. Arthur, noticing this, loses trust in Micah. Dutch is increasingly dangerous, and ambitious decisions lead Arthur to question his loyalty. The gang is on the brink of disbandment, but Arthur and John try to stick together to survive. Around this time, Arthur Morgan learns that he has tuberculosis. This disease weakens him physically and gives him a different perspective on life. Arthur now understands the impermanence of life and values his true friends within the gang. At this point, the thing he cares about most is the safety of John's family, his wife Abigail and his son Jack. Despite the inner conflicts and chaos in the gang, Arthur decides to help John's family escape for a better future. When he discovers that Mike has betrayed the gang and that there's a traitor among them, Arthur confronts this truth. In the end, after ensuring John's escape, he faces his own end by fighting Micah. In this tragic showdown, Arthur's defeated and loses his life. After these events, the gang completely disbands. Dutch disappears and the remaining members pay a heavy price, each scattering in different directions. Years later, John Marston, now an ex-outlaw, tries to live a quiet life. However, government officials do not intend to let his past rest. John's wife and son are taken hostage, and he's told he must capture his former friends if he wants them back. John reluctantly accepts, embarking on a journey to save his family and finally face his past. Despite his inner conflicts, John agrees to hunt down his former gang members for his family's sake. He goes after the remaining members of the gang, including Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and ultimately Dutch Van der Linde. During this difficult journey, John confronts his old friends and hands each one over to the law. In the end, when he finally faces Dutch one last time, Dutch, accepting that everything is over, takes his own life, allowing John to have his revenge. But the story doesn't end there. John returns to his ranch with his family, but the government wants to erase his past by eliminating him rather than setting him free. During a raid, John heroically defends his home, but is ultimately gunned down. With John's death, the last traces of an era are erased. Witnessing the events that befell his family, Jack Marston, John's son, grows up determined to avenge his father. Years later, he finds Edgar Ross, the agent responsible for his father's death, and ends the blood feud by killing him.